Fall is officially here this weekend, so let's paint a scarecrow. I'm using 16 by 20 stretch canvas, and take your mop brush with some blue and white and do back and forth strokes at the top of the canvas for your sky. Then with a clean mop brush and some dark brown, do back and forth strokes at the bottom of your canvas. This is going to be the muddy barnyard floor, and we're going to paint a cornfield for our background. Using some black, we're going to get the illusion of depth using some shading. So for the underpainting of the cornfield, blend the black into the brown and do a couple strokes upward, and then dip right into dark green and blend that into the black. Back and forth strokes keep moving up your canvas, and at the very top where the sun would be shining on the green, you would see it more. So grab the bright green and do back and forth strokes up to the sky, but leave a gap because we're going to take a fine artist sponge, and just so we don't have a perfectly straight edge at the top of our cornfield, we're going to bounce in some texture. Make sure it's uneven, but at the part where it meets the green below, just take a clean mop brush then and blend in those edges. Perfect. Dry the background and grab a size 7 round brush. Let's paint some corn stalks. So a cornfield has tons of corn stalks. We just visited one recently and they were all over the place, but we're only going to paint 2 rows. So see how I'm starting down where the brown and the black meet, doing lines going up through the texture, all different heights. And then I'm going to add a second row in between, a little smaller up in the black, and having those go in between. There, we're only going to be able to see the 2 rows. Then take some of the dark green. While it's still wet, I'm just going to blend downward on those stalks to give it a little bit of shading. I know it's weird. The bottoms of the corn stalks usually were a little bit brighter, we noticed. And then we're going to take the same round brush again and add some leaves. Now, I'm using some dark green and just starting on the stalk, pulling up and then curving it down. Add these all over. It doesn't have to be a perfect curve you make. They can be kind of wiggly when they come out. Just have fun with them. The ones at the top would be a little smaller than the ones towards the bottom. A real cornfield has a lot of leaves, so we are just doing a few, really. Remember, this is all background. I'm even taking some light green and adding some highlights. Don't spend too much time on detail because the scarecrow is going to be the focus, but if you want, you could add some corn too. I'm just taking some golden yellow and adding a couple little teardrops coming off. Let's add a couple leaves there too. Super cute. And as final touch, at the very top of each of the corn stalks, take a detail brush with some golden yellow, and they have these little hairs. I don't know what they're called, but do a straight line up, and you can have like little branches coming off and little wisps, little hairs that curl over. Gravity's pulling them down, and they were all different. You can even, just when you're done doing the shape, add a little bit of white for some highlights. And just make sure they're at the top of each one. And there's your easy cornfield. Now, the bottoms of them might look a little uneven, so you can fix those up and then make sure you dry it, because we're going to take a size 8 flat brush then and start our fence. Now, I'm going to do just the posts of my fence first, and I'm only going to do 4 posts and not make them straight. I know this is going to drive OCD people nuts, but I'm going to have them all leaning different directions just to make it quirky, and use the straight edge of the flat brush to help you get straight edges. My crossboards are also going to be kind of all crookedy and wonky, so have fun with it. This is going to give it a little bit more dynamics because the corn stalks are all going straight up and down. It wouldn't be as much fun to have the fence straight either. But do that in tan first, and then to make it look like a wood board, I'm going to start blending in some dark brown. Again, use the flat edge of the flat brush to help you get straight lines. And I suggest doing the crossboards first, because see how a little bit of the dark brown is getting into the posts? Once you do that, then you can go in and fill in your posts, and then that cleans up any lines that might have gotten messed up. See there? That works perfect. It's up to you if you want to do this more 3-dimensional, but I'm just doing it flat because this is just the background. Dry it and grab a size 7 round brush. We're going to start our scarecrow. I'm going to use white first and just do a circle for the head. You decide how tall he is. I have mine right underneath the corn line. And then once you get the white circle, I'm going to fill it in with some tan. Now, once you got your head in there, decide what color shirt he's wearing and grab a slightly smaller round brush. I'm going to do a rectangle underneath his head. That's the top of his shirt. And then fill it in. On each side of the rectangle, do some arms. I'm just doing a longer rectangle, but just like the fence, it's not perfectly straight. So the one on the left I have leaning down, and the one on the right I have kind of tilted upward. He's going to be a wonky scarecrow. fill that in with red. And because we want to make it look like he's wearing a shirt, we're going to do wavy lines underneath those rectangles on his arms so the gravity looks like it's pulling down on the fabric. Now let's do his trousers next. I'm going to do a square underneath his shirt and fill it in. I'm doing white first because I know the colors I want to use for his trousers are a little thinner and I want them to stand out, so doing white first is great for that. And once you get your square, add some legs. Notice how my lines are wavy, again, to make it look like there's fabric. And I'm just going to fill that in too. That's your base layer. And I'm going to use a bright blue and a navy blue to make it look like jean fabric. Now, again, these are pretty thin paints for these colors. Some colors I notice are thicker than others, so I know I'm going to need to do 2 coats, and the white helps it stand out. And then at the top, I'm going to take some navy and a little bit of white and add some straps to those trousers. I wanted some contrast, so I used a little bit of navy there, even shade that a little bit more. Ooh, I like that contrast. And while we're designing, take a detail brush then. I'm going to do a rounded square on the side of his trousers for a pocket. Cute. And how about to make it look like a scarecrow, let's add some patches. So I'm going to do them bright yellow, so I'm doing white first again so it will stand out. How about 2 circles on those straps for some buttons? And then dry it. You can add in your color. See how that yellow pops now? If I hadn't done the white, it would have turned a little bit more green. There we go, I like that. Now, I don't know what it is about fall that makes me think plaid. Plaid was really in when I was younger, when fall came around. But I'm going to add some stripes with a detail brush with some golden yellow. And I'm going to add some cross hatching now here. See how the lines are all wavy to make it look like fabric, and they're curved to the left on the left side. Also, in the middle, do a couple lines. I'm only going to do 3 rows. Keep it super simple, but make sure they're all wavy to go along with the fabric. The ones on the right are curved to the right. There, he's starting to look like a scarecrow. Now let's finish his head. I'm going to take a smaller round brush, this is a size 3, do a wavy neckline there and fill it in with the same color you used for your head. Maybe bring it down a little bit more in the middle there. And you can do some shading on the head, so I'm taking some light brown, this is nutmeg, curve a little bit on the bottom edge of his head, highlights on the neckline. And then you decide how you want to design his face. I'm taking a detail brush and doing 2 teardrop black eyes there. I'm going to do it the same type of face I used for my wine bottle scarecrow craft. They'll look like they're related. And I'm going to do a light orange nose, wavy line for a mouth, maybe make the nose a little bit brighter. There we go. And stitch them all together. Don't forget some little black ticks, little tiny lines in 1 or 2 lines at a time. Pretend you're stitching him together. This kind of reminds me of Coraline. But instead of buttons for eyes, why don't we use a little bit of white highlights? I'm going to do 2 curved white highlights on the outside edges of his eyes and 2 dots in the middle there to make it look like he's come alive. Oh, so cute. And while we're adding details, why don't we add some stitching to his pocket and his patches with some black paint? There we go. And you can even do some decorative stitching. I love white because it always makes everything pop. So anywhere you want to have decorative stitching, I'm going to do along the edges of his straps and at the top of his pocket. Why don't we even do some at the bottom of his pants? Oh, so cute. I don't know much about Scarecrow fashion, if you will. Why don't we give him a belt, though? Like a rope belt. Even a little bit of a knot here. A couple wavy lines coming out. And here's the best part, we have to stuff it with hay. So take a size 3 round brush and just do some tan and white, little lines coming out of both his arms and the legs at the bottom. They're all crossing over each other. Don't forget his head. I'm gonna do some hair sticking out on both sides, maybe a couple little bangs in the front. You decide how much. And I want my hay to be really bright colored, so I am going to tint it with a little bit of golden yellow and white as well. Use both the tan and the yellow together. And once you get as much as you want, fix up the edges of the shirt and the bottom of the pants. Perfect. And to top them off, let's add a hat. So I'm taking some nutmeg and tan, just a really light brown. And for the rim, I'm going to have it mirror his neckline. So do a wavy line there. It's curved at the top like a smile and wavy at the bottom. Give him some sort of top hat, a little bit, like a little rectangle, and fill it in. And you decide how much detail you do on the hat. I'm going to do some highlights. Let's do a strap with dark brown in the middle, some shading around the edges and on the rim. It would be brighter toward the top where the sun is shining on it, so a little bit of white and tan there and on the rim. And design it however you want with decorations. Now on my wine bottle scarecrow, I had some leaves and berries, so let's do a fun leaf. Do a line out and some curved points on one side of the line and do the same thing on the other one. Using my detail brush for this, let's do some shading with some of that nutmeg and highlight with some yellow. This is one of my favorite color leaves. Let me know what color is your favorite in this video. I like orange and yellow the best, I think. Do some veins in some of that dark brown. Don't forget a couple berries. I'm going to use the colors we've already used in the painting to help bring it out. And I love white pops for highlights. Any type of cartoon figure like this, I love to just do little white highlights wherever you want. I'm even going to add some pops of white on the hay in his hair. And at the very bottom, I don't want to lose the scarecrow as the focus, but I think it's kind of boring. So why don't we do some like wheat grasses? I did a few long stalks with my detail brush with tan. And see how I'm doing just a fluffy top. I'm pulling some lines out and up on the top of each of them. Hardly any paint is on my brush. You could even use your fan brush if you struggle with this to get wispy lines, but always have them pointing upward like little V's. I did a few on each side of him, and why don't we do some like dry grasses? I'm just going to take some tan and do some upward strokes all over. Again, I'm not going to do a whole lot of detail down here because I don't want it to get too busy. But I am going to fill in some tan and maybe some dark brown for some shading. Why don't we even pull in some of that brighter green at the top with a couple little grasses? Maybe not all the grass was killed when people were running back and forth. And, you know, we forgot something pretty important. You have a floating scarecrow right now, so give him some sort of pull. It could be discreet. It doesn't have to really stand out that much, but do a little post behind him. And as a final touch, maybe he's holding something. I've seen a lot of versions of this where it's holding a bird of some kind. I'm going to do a tiny little crow, a big circle, little tail, and why don't we do some highlights on his head? He's a really tiny one. A crow is actually pretty big, unless we have a really giant scarecrow. Add a beak and an eye, and there is the scarecrow. That was a lot of detail. Have fun with this. What do you think? Do they look related, the wine bottle and the painting? I think they look like cousins about. Pretty cute. I hope you enjoyed this one. Have fun, make it your own. I can't wait to see how they turned out, and have a great first day of fall this weekend.